Welcome to the show, everybody. Happy Monday. Thanks so much for being with us. This is the Paul Harrell program. So, is it disaster relief or is it white supremacy? So, it's only been a couple of weeks since the Trump DOJ and Todd Blanche, the Attorney General, indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center for funding the very radicals that they're supposed to stop and call out, basically creating for themselves their own work product to then go and fundraise off of, essentially false flagging the entire country for decades. And there's even some ties, as we covered on the program when this story broke. I mean, even people are going back and looking at the SPLC mentions in the documents surrounding the Oklahoma City bombing. So this whole thing has been debunked, right? I mean, it has been a huge problem for the left. And so right on cue, what does the media do? Where here comes 60 Minutes to the rescue, and they decided to file a report on white people who are showing up in the wake of natural disasters like tornadoes and hurricanes, and how they're actually helping people, but they may be white supremacists because they believe that the government, through technologies, like the DARPA-funded HARP and that sort of thing, may have, it's this new conspiracy theory, they may believe that it was the government itself that caused the disasters to begin with. Do you see what 60 Minutes is doing here? You have the Southern Poverty Law Center exposed as a bunch of racial hoaxsters, and that's being generous. That's being actually pretty polite to them. And so right on cue, here's 60 Minutes reminding all of us that, oh, no, this may be white supremacy. When these groups that are not connected with the government, many of these groups, by the way, are former military, former soldiers who are trying to help out, they're showing up, and they're, in the case of what happened with the hurricane in North Carolina and FEMA under Joe Biden, there was so much money that was being spent. FEMA was out of money. Do you remember this? And now here comes 60 Minutes stoking the fears of white supremacy again, making sure you know that it is still, regardless of what you may hear about the Southern Poverty Law Center and their false flags and them funding the Charlottesville, Unite the Right rally, they're here to remind us, no, it is still a danger, and they're there to reinforce the lies. And so we're going to talk about that today. Also going to talk about the Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins coming out and calling out the meat packing monopoly. I thought this was really good, especially somebody like myself who constantly reminds everybody out there, anybody who's willing to listen, that brisket prices are just too high. We're going to talk about that as well. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend, and the show starts right now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks. Flying solo today. I believe Eric Haynes is going to be on the program with me tomorrow. I have bad news for you guys. Our co-host, Rob Spencer, he decided to take a vacation this week. So, actually, I'm really happy for him. I'm glad that he's getting some sun. But he's not going to be here this week. So, maybe I'll get into one of the segments of, If You're So Stupid. Maybe that'll be me in his honor. But I think Eric should be here. And, we're looking at having some other guests as well into the studio to kind of liven things up a little bit for later in the week, if that works out. But I hope everybody had a great weekend. As I said earlier, we're broadcasting here on LFA TV, as well as the Paul Harrell Program YouTube page, Facebook, also on X, and we're broadcasting from the state of Arkansas, so we really do appreciate it. We can't do it without you. Hope everybody had a blessed Lord's Day yesterday and is ready to take on the week. In my station, we're going to be consuming as many headlines as we can that I think are relevant, or at least relevant to me, right? I mean, it is my show. But we're going to start here with this 60 Minutes thing. I never watch 60 Minutes. I don't watch CBS. I don't even watch Fox News, really. But 60 Minutes comes out and does this. I mean, to me, this is just out of left field. But does a segment on, I don't even know how to describe it other than they do a segment on white people helping their neighbors. and they make it about white supremacy. I mean, it's just incredible how absolutely desperate these people are to continue this narrative that was exposed as a total fraud by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And again, when we talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center back when the indictment came out, we mentioned to you how the SPLC was able to finagle a way to kind of elevate themselves over our society as like this bastion of neutrality, right? Since we can all agree that racism is wrong, well, okay, it's wrong, and so here they are as the arbiters, even though they put, conservatives on there, and it basically became a left-wing hit list, if you want to be honest about it. They even put, Turning Point on there, they put Charlie Kirk on there. But they essentially, were elevated, and they were given this neutral status, even though they weren't neutral, they were clearly leftists, but all corporations, obviously we know the media and everything else, Hollywood, entertainment industry, they were looked to as this authority, right? So to find out that they're paying bad actors, to go and organize transportation to the Unite the Right rally, or then turn around and make social media posts that are deemed racist, and then the SPLC comes and writes stories and articles about how, about their own people that they're paying, and then turns around and fundraises on that. And again, that's why they got hit with the wire fraud charges as well, because of what they were doing, raising the money. I mean, it just blows the entire narrative up. And again, if you go and you look at some of those documents about the Southern Poverty Law Center related to the Oklahoma City bombing, there's documents tying their people to the town where it is alleged that the Oklahoma City bombing was planned. So, I mean, it really blows this, no pun intended, I mean, it blows their entire scheme up. I mean, speaking of the Oklahoma City bombing, I mean, I'm old enough to remember where, one of the people that got blamed for that was Rush Limbaugh. The late, great Rush Limbaugh was literally blamed for the Oklahoma City bombing. And, you had Bill Clinton who went out there. I think he was on a tarmac somewhere, saying, you got Rush Limbaugh. He's got, 3 hours a day on the radio, stirring all this stuff up. They tried to tie that to him. So their playbook is, has been run against this country, and it's a psychological operation, psychological warfare against the minds of Americans. It's also why so many people, I mean, if you just think about it, any time that you're talking about the fake, allegations of racism from the left, even people like myself on the right feel this compulsion to come out and say, well, there are legitimate people on the far right that are racist that I disagree with. And so much of that impulse to be able to qualify. By the way, the left never qualifies anything. When they're denouncing the right, they never qualify anything. Or very rarely do they. So much of that impulse was just based off of nonsense. It's based off of, fake lies, false presuppositions. And yet here we are. Also, it's one of the reasons why, I mean, it goes hand in glove with the Supreme Court decision the other day. It goes hand in glove with the Supreme Court decision the other day saying, hey, you can't gerrymander districts by race. So while the SPLC was out here running these false flags on America, on the country, at the same time, we had court-ordered racially based districts that punished the South in particular from being able to operate their governments, their districts, the way New England gets to operate theirs, where they have 60% Democrat states to 40% Democrat states, 60-40 states, but all of the representatives in the House are blue. We have 60-40 states, or 70-30 states, and yet we have these little pockets, or these big gerrymander districts where it's okay. No, this is a racially district, so you're going to have a Democrat from that district. And again, not to rehash too much from last week, but what does that also do? That also guarantees that those blue Southern districts are also going to be your most radical Democrats. Pulling the country further and further left. But it goes hand in glove. We were essentially, SPLC was the basis of the foundation of the narrative as to why the South still needed these court-enforced gerrymander districts based on the color of somebody's skin. because it's still a problem down there in the South, the Unite the Right rally. Never mind the fact that the SPLC paid the guy to do it. It's just frustrating. And I don't even know. I mean, I guess I knew that this was the case, but, I mean, the Supreme Court decision really it just made me even angrier. It made me even more frustrated that my whole life, and you're seeing this with a lot of people, I don't know how old I am. I guess I'm about to be 42. So my whole life and longer, we here in the South, and you could also argue flyover country, have been given a speed limit. We've been given a court-enforced racial gerrymandering speed limit in our territory, in our land, where people up in New England, they have no speed limit. They can go as fast as they want. They can do whatever they want to do when it comes to apportionment for representation in Congress. And it's just maddening when you think about it. So much of the government, the votes, it's just been fake. It's been done to intentionally disadvantage areas of the country that they look down upon. And even the Republican Party does this. The Republican Party does this. The Republican Party, the primaries, okay, the first primary, love people in Iowa, and maybe you keep Iowa, but then you immediately go to the Iowa caucuses, and then you immediately, jaunt off to the Northeast and let a bunch of moderate Republicans get to decide who the nominee is going to be, and then you don't get to the South until months later. I think you can make a strong case that the primaries, the Republican primaries, when it comes to who's going to be our presidential nominee, the first primary state should be Alabama, or my state of Arkansas, or let us all vote in a block, because I know a lot of those Southeastern Conference schools, I think, on presidential years vote the same day anyway. But why is it that the Northeast votes before we get to vote when we are the base of the party? And it's because the donors to the Republican Party don't want people like me to have a say, people like you to have a say at first. They want a chance to run their psychological operations in the media. They want a chance for, dirt and opposition research to come out so that they can weed candidates out they don't like. And this gives them the ability to be architects and to, just like both parties tend to do when it comes to who the end result is, it doesn't matter who you really vote for. Nothing's going to really change in the big party structure. This is this is what they try to do. But when it comes to who's going to be the nominee of the Republicans, that's how you get a Mitt Romney as your nominee, right? Who famously, it was said, looked like he showed up, from a casting call to play the president of the United States on the West Wing, if you remember that show. It's called choice architecture, and the RNC does it against its own people because the RNC doesn't belong to us as far as they're concerned. The RNC belongs to the donors, doesn't belong to your county committee. It should, and there are plenty of hardworking Republicans at their local county committees that are trying to wrestle their party away from these big donors, and then they get pushback from the establishment in their own state governments. And if you want to know why there's that friction, why there's that superiority, there's this, we're going to roll our eyes because we got Jim Bob that thinks he can run for the county chairman. Oh, we're going to roll our eyes at that. If you want to know why that is, it's because the secret is that those county committees, the RNC says, no, those are ours. They're not yours. They belong to us. They don't belong to you. That's the secret. That's their mentality. We have to at least admit that that's what they think if we're going to win. And if we're going to, use the Republican Party or any party for that matter as a vehicle instead of allowing it to use and manipulate us. Been around a while, been around long enough to remember what happened in 2009, 2010 with the Tea Party and everything else. We don't have to rehash all that, but maybe we should someday. CBS has to save the white supremacy narrative. I don't think they're going to, but this is what they were trying to do. Here it is, Leslie Stahl, and this is the tweet. It's a 13-minute segment. After natural disasters, white nationalists, militias, and conspiracists often arrive, offering help, but they also want to recruit and improve their image. Hey, wait, what? What even is that? What is that? They arrive to help, but they're there to improve their image. This is just incredible to me. All right, so let's listen in just to a little bit of this 60 Minutes piece.
A surge of tornadoes tore across a large swath of the country in April, carving a path of destruction. Over 200 tornadoes hit over 20 states, closely clustered in the last couple of weeks. And hurricane season is just around the corner. Our story tonight is about what happens after these natural disasters. A pattern has emerged in recent years in which militias, conspiracists, and white supremacists show up to hard-hit communities, as they did last week in Texas, offering help. But they've been called disaster tourists who are out to sow doubt in government, soften their own image, and gain followers.
Okay, so a couple of things. First off, CBS News has no idea about the average American. There's no need to convince people to not trust their own government. There's no need to sow distrust in our own government right now. I mean, somebody like Leslie Stahl or any of these people at 60 Minutes or CBS, I mean, they have no idea because they're not normal. They're not normal people. I mean, you take a poll anywhere right now, nonpartisan or it doesn't matter. How many of you people trust what the government says? How many of you people think the government's telling you the truth? How many of you people think the government's going to be there for you when you need them? There's no mistrust that needs to be sown. There's no lie that needs to be told to convince them of this. This is people's general default position right now. This status quo is that a majority of this country does not trust what is going on. Okay? I mean, we can get into specifics, but I mean, that's just baseline. Never mind the fact that this is essentially a segment about the dangers of white people, because this is directed at white nationalists. This is a segment that is just about white people are doing things. Ooh, white people are doing things. White people are showing up and helping in the middle of disaster. They must have some ulterior motive. They must be there to soften their image and recruit.
September 2024. Hurricane Helene barreled through North Carolina with forces so powerful it nearly wiped the town of Bat Cave off the map, lifting homes and toppling trees.
Imagine taking in a box of toothpicks and dumping them on your kitchen counter.
Sheriff Lowell Griffin faced a daunting rescue task.
We had already experienced days of heavy rain, and then the hurricane comes through.
Like a triple whammy.
Yes.
Then another whammy. Outsiders started pouring into North Carolina.
So we got a lot of work to get done. If you're able to
including an influx of anti-government far-right groups.
These folks that we're talking about, they were in the minority. However, that minority can create chaos, and that's what we ran into.
Did some of these outsiders launch their own rescue operations?
We had some folks wanting to act as a militia coming in to take over to, in their mind, bring some sort of self-deployed law and order to the area.
With weapons?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's like taking your time from the real rescue to deal with them?
It is.
folks, I don't know if you remember the reports when this was happening. There were people, there were military vets that were trying to airlift people out, and there were local county sheriffs telling the helicopters to turn around. They weren't doing anything. I mean, this is the reporting that we were getting. I'll back to it. I'm going to say they weren't doing anything, but there was people begging for help, and the help was not getting there fast enough. And there were helicopters, people were sacrificing their private money, their private helicopters. They were paying for the fuel to go in there and help people. Okay. Shocker, I don't know, the local law enforcement there wasn't a fan of it. And again, but this was a huge problem. And I'll tell you something else that was going on. There were plenty of people that were motivated to go and help to try to get North Carolina's voting systems back online. Because as soon as this happened, I immediately thought, okay, North Carolina's in play, because will these people be able to go and vote for President Trump in 2024? How convenient. And if there is a way for them to go vote, there's going to be forces, at work to try to, the Biden administration, FEMA and their lack of I won't say lack of resources, but their unwillingness to do what they're supposed to do. There was plenty of people like myself and others that were believing, hey, if they have a chance to screw this up, they're gonna make sure to do it. If the state of North Carolina is in play here, they're going to do everything they can to try to use this disaster and disenfranchise the entire western part of the state. That was also at play here. I don't know if you guys remember these stories that were coming out in the middle of Hurricane Helene or in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, but it was obvious that the federal government was inept in many, many ways. And then you had the leaked audio of FEMA people saying that they had run out of money because of they were spending it on illegal immigrants at the border. Then you had the FEMA disaster loans that was just basically chump change, and then the requirement to pay it back and everything else. It was just all these strenuous requirements. It was insane what went on during Hurricane Helene, and it was a massive natural disaster that totally crippled the state into crippled eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina. Here's this other segment here where they talk about weather modification.
During Helene, FEMA rescuers had to back away for a few days when there were fears that militias were coming to hunt them. Also, a wild rumor spread that the government...
Insane statement that the militias were coming to hunt them. FEMA was kicking people off of their land. Do you not remember this? FEMA was telling people, no, you can't stay here. No, you can't rebuild. No, you've got to come with us. And there were people that didn't want to go. That's what was going on here. I mean, what they're talking about really, what they're really talking about is like a mini, remember the Bundy ranch standoff where the feds were trying to, take their land and, take their cattle and everything. And then you had that big standoff there, which almost went kinetic. And then all of a sudden it went away because the other side had guns. And so it just kind of dissolved. The situation resolved and the feds came after them in other ways.
Away for a few days when there were fears that militias were coming to hunt them. Also, a wild rumor spread that the government actually created Hurricane Helene using weather monitoring towers as a weather weapon.
Now, this is a directed energy weapon utilized to manipulate the weather. These are weapons of mass destruction.
So basically the rumor was that, the government controls the weather and that this was a direct attack on the area.
Is this usual now in disasters? One, that there are these false rumors, conspiracies being spread, and two, that outside groups sort of stream in and make it more difficult for law enforcement.
So what I'm afraid of is, from what I've seen, this will be the new normal.
During Helene,
Okay, so a couple of things happened in that clip. And this is the one I want to focus on right here. Listen to this again.
So basically the rumor was that, the government controls the weather and that this was a direct attack on the area.
Is this usual now in disasters? One, that there are these false rumors, conspiracies being spread?
Conspiracies being spread. So we can take note. This is CBS News, 60 Minutes, official. They are now calling the idea that that the government can create weather or manipulate weather, or I'll go further because I kind of know all about this. Take existing weather patterns, make them stronger, make them weaker. They're now calling this a conspiracy theory. Conspiracists, conspiracy theory. Now, those of you out there know what this means, or you should know what this means. This is actually a really, really good development if you're somebody that wants the truth to come out in its fullest form. And that is when the mainstream media, and you don't get more mainstream media than 60 Minutes on CBS, when the mainstream media now says that believing that the government has technology to modify the weather and use it against its own people is a conspiracy theory. Let the clock start, because you and I both know that I can't even think of a time when it's not true, but let's just give it a 90% chance. You and I know that 90% of the time when the mainstream media starts to rail against what they call as conspiracy theories, we only have to wait 6 months, a year at the most, for evidence to emerge that completely proves the conspiracy theory is true. Now, there's those of you out there right now, I'm sure, that are going to say, well, Paul, I mean, if you know where to look, you can already verify that the government has this technology and has actively used it. Yes, I'm aware of a lot of that evidence. Geoengineering Watch, you've got, Dane Wigington, you've got some great folks online that are able to, in real time, I mean, as the radar comes in, as they're scanning these big storms that develop, some very convincing footage, as far as I'm concerned, very convincing footage of the Doppler actually appearing to make storms stronger out of nowhere, right? And it looks like something was injected into the storms or whatever else. And again, I don't have anything conclusive, but people are coming to these like I said, where are people getting these ideas? Could be, the left is going to say, oh well, it's Russia. It's Russia. They're taking over the internet and they're putting these ideas out there, and people are just buying them because they're just so stupid. Or you have people that are believing their own eyes. They're doing their own research from multiple people. They believe some of it, they don't believe others of it. Or you look at the HARP facility that's by DARPA, or even you go towards you go watch RFK Jr. on Dr. Phil, where he's asked about chemtrails, and he says he thinks that's DARPA that's doing it, and they're going to get to the bottom of it. And that was specifically about why they're spraying things in the sky. The heavy metals and that sort of thing, some form of, I don't know if it's terraforming, I don't know if it's seeding the weather, but the idea that you can't seed, cloud seed, obviously we know that cloud seeding is real. We know that it took place in the state of Texas right before those massive floods that took place a couple of years ago. We also know that it happened during, you can go look it up, that it's happened during the Vietnam War, where we tried to weaponize the weather. And so this was the context of what happened in 2024, right before the election. You had this storm that just got so strong that just for lack of a better term, looked like it was juiced, and it just came, right up the East Coast there, and then made this hook inward. By the way, that was right after the state of Tennessee passed legislation banning geoengineering from planes. By the way, did you know this? It was a huge story. The state of Tennessee in 2024 came out, and it might have been in 2023. 2023, 2024, the state of Tennessee debated a bill in their House and Senate committees and on the House floor and the Senate floor, and they signed it banning planes. They did not use the term chemtrails, but the term geoengineering, which if you go to the EPA.gov website, they tell you that one of the forms of geoengineering, on the government's website right now, they say one of the forms of geoengineering is dispersing chemicals via aerosol via airplane. It's right there on their website right now. So right after that, here's this hurricane that comes in, and people are sitting there like, wow, okay. Then you had the reports of the lithium mines underneath, and that maybe big corporations needed the land. Whether that's true or not, the idea of again, back to my first point at the beginning, people don't believe that the government is telling them the truth, and they don't believe that the government it has their best interest at heart, and they take it even further that the government is actively trying to cull the herd and treat us essentially like serfs in some sort of new feudalistic society. And I didn't believe in chemtrails until 2020. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm, relatively a new convert here. I mean, I'd heard about them, I had considered them, but it wasn't until 2020 when everybody's at home and I spent a lot of time outside and I started looking up and started watching what was going on, and I thought, this doesn't seem right to me. And on Friday, we talked about chemtrails with Anita Tibau, and we brought up the fact that our own government, the United States Army, gassed the slums of St. Louis in the 1950s to test a satellite cover weapon, or I don't know if you call it a weapon, but they claimed they were testing something to block the Soviet satellites, and it gave everybody cancer. Court documents, you can go back in 2012 and read them. It all came out. The U.S. Army admitted they did it. To our own people, they gassed their own people. So the idea that we're, and COVID alone should tell us that the government doesn't care about the people and will do things to actively harm us. Whether in COVID it was, lying to us all and trying to get around Freedom of Information Act laws, or whether it was Anthony Fauci funding the, EcoHealth Alliance, and then Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Everyone thinks that the virus was created in China. No. It was mass-produced over there, in my opinion. I think it was originally in our own against our own laws. It was originally right here, to his credit, Senator Rand Paul actually, he's written about Ralph Barrick and has questions about him, and the University of North Carolina. So this is all really interesting to me, but I feel like you guys can take it with a grain of salt. Tell me what you think about it. They're trying to make people that show up to do the job the government won't do white supremacists. Oh, and by the way, these guys showing up with their chainsaws, helping people, bringing in their own helicopters, rescuing people, then being detained, by the way. There was one story where a guy had to leave his son on a mountain because he was detained because he wasn't supposed to use his helicopter because these law enforcement guys, I don't know, I guess they felt emasculated. That, are they really there to help some of these law enforcement guys, or are they really there as just FEMA's representatives? But these guys show up and you make them part of the problem because they believe. Who cares what they believe? Who cares if they do believe that the government caused the storms? Who cares? They're there now with chainsaws helping people. And also, by the way, there was a legitimate, this happened in September, and this happened, after the Butler assassination attempt, which again got swept under the rug. People were, they totally leave this out, but the circumstances of what was going on in September of 2024 when that hurricane hit after the Butler assassination attempt against President Trump in July, people were putting two and two together. People were putting two and two together, and they were saying, okay, President Trump was not supposed to survive that, but the cover story was supposed to be the same. The cover story was going to be the same. If President Trump had not survived Butler, the story was going to be the same. We don't know what happened. The roof was sloped. We couldn't secure it because the roof was sloped. And half the country, if not more, would have assumed our own government assassinated President Trump. Now, you tell me what happens after that. You have a civil war. You have elections that are canceled. Now, that didn't happen, but they were going to give you the same story. It was meant to not make sense. The story behind the successful assassination or the failed assassination was going to be the same, and it was meant to gaslight the entire country into an uprising, and also probably alongside it, false flag uprisings that they could blame, just like that the SPLC was probably funding the whole time. The SPLC was probably right there, ready to kick it off, and then it would have been the pretext, and in that instance, this close to full blown communism. So, this was the mindset when this hurricane comes through. And if you know where to, it's compelling information out there. If you know where to look, where to read, who to follow, that guy on X, Dutch Sense. I know he likes to try to predict earthquakes a lot of the time, but also very good with weather and the capabilities that exist out there. So let's Leslie Stahl, everybody. That's 60 Minutes trying their best to undo the truth, to try to recast the spell, and it very much is a spell, to recast the spell that is, white supremacy is the greatest domestic terror threat this country faces. 60 Minutes trying to reinforce that narrative, recast the spell over the weekend. We're going to reset here. It's 39 minutes past the hour. You guys have me for another hour and 20 minutes here on LFA TV. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back here in just a moment. Going to talk a little bit about the meat packing monopolies. Don't go anywhere.
For centuries, light has been used to heal. Awaken the body with Red Vive.
Why is Red Vive different? What sets it apart? What sets us apart from the standard red light panels? This is a medical grade device, and what that means is the red light bulbs and the near infrared bulbs have very specific wavelengths. If you think about the wavelength as the medicine, the 635, the 670, the 810, the 850, those were specifically chosen because those are the most powerful effectors of the cells. So those specific wavelengths, when they get into our body, when they affect our tissue, they spike energy production, they help with nerve pain control, they increase stem cell counts. There's very specific mechanisms that those specific wavelengths work at, and that's the medicine. So if you think of, say, medicine as an Advil or a specific steroid or a blood pressure medication, the wavelength is the medication. The other part of that, whenever you take a medication, is dose. Right? So you have the medication. So if you take 1 milligram of Advil and the average dose of an Advil is 200 milligrams to 800 milligrams, it's not going to work. That doesn't mean the medicine's bad. It just means you didn't take enough. Right? And so even if you have the right wavelengths, first you have to have the right medicine, and then you have to have the right dose. And to have the right dose, you have, in light therapy, you have to have enough energy. So you have to have a powerful bulb. The LED bulbs, or light emitting diodes, have a specific wavelength, and that wavelength is the medicine. And the wavelengths that have been studied and published on that are the most powerful in affecting healing and the changes that we want to see with our bodies and our health are the 635 wavelength, the 670, 810 nanometer wavelength, and 850 nanometer wavelength. Those are all going to affect the mitochondria, the cytochrome C oxidase, and affect those powerful long-term changes and affect that downstream pathways. And that's what you get with RedVive devices. The highest efficacy, the best wavelengths, concentrated to help your health.
This is our family dog, Bubba. He is a Shorty Jack Russell, and he brings a lot of love and laughter into our home. We just want to thank Pet Club for making healthy food and treats for our animals. Bubba has been on Pet Club food for a little over a year now. He really likes the Sequoia dry food, and then I put a scoop of the Sequoia wet dog food in there with some hot water and stir it up, and he absolutely loves it. And he likes the mush puppies, but his ultimate favorite is the antlers. Those keep him busy for a really long time, and he really likes them. It makes us feel really good that the food and treats that we give him have healthy ingredients in them, because we want him to be around for a really long time. Our previous dog was a lab, and his name was Titus, and we fed him in bulk, and we would just get his food from the big box grocery stores. And unfortunately, that food wasn't very healthy for him, and he ended up getting cancer and passing away. So we didn't want to make that mistake with Bubba. So we were really fortunate to find Pet Club and find some really healthy food for him to eat. So we would just like to thank Pet Club, and we just really appreciate the healthy food that they make, so we can keep this guy around as long as we can.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us. A few of your comments are going to get to those. Let's see. We got Clee Sully writing in as a response to our last segment, highlighting how Leslie Neal is trying to, or Leslie Nielsen, how Leslie Stahl is trying to save the SPLC's narrative. Of course, we got into weather modification because that's what they're trying to say. These people, these white people, showing up with chainsaws to help people affected by Hurricane Helene. Some of them believe that the government controls the weather. Can you believe that? I think we'll take their chainsaws, by the way. I think we'll take their help, but no. You got to get this, I'm sorry, if you're a law enforcement officer and you're going to go and do CBS News with Leslie Stahl in 60 Minutes about this topic, I'm sorry, you're working for the enemy, and so make your own assumptions at that point. But anyway, let's see. Clee Sully writes, they are trying to make us all sick, dependent on big pharma to cover the deadly symptoms of our ailments. We talked about this a little bit last week, how all of this stuff, the toxicity of our food. Have you seen the stories about the tick population right now? Allegedly, and I think maybe we have a slide of this pulled somewhere for today. Allegedly, people are finding boxes of ticks that have been placed in the woods or on people's properties teeming with ticks. And, we now have documents that have come out about Lyme's disease and where it came from. And many people believe, based on the evidence available, that Lyme disease was actually manufactured, put into ticks to create this autoimmune crisis that many people have. But now you have people like Bill Gates who, have invested in this lab-grown meat they want us to all eat, like Snowpiercer style. Well, it won't start out Snowpiercer style. If you've ever seen the movie Snowpiercer with Chris Evans, where they're eating this gelatin, like these Jello bricks, like the size of gold bars, but it's just like insects. It's like insect goo made into gelatin, and that's what they feed the poor people on the train. We're not quite there yet, but it's certainly a step in the right direction, or the wrong direction, but in that direction, I think, this lab-grown meat. So they're trying to make lab-grown meat a thing, while at the same time beef and cattle prices are going through the roof, and they're trying to do all this, and at the same time, just coincidentally, there's now a new tick disease that gives people a disease called alpha-gal syndrome. and alpha-gal syndrome makes you allergic to red meat. What a coincidence. The lab-grown meat was already here, ready for us to consume, and who knows? I just didn't know I needed all those nanoparticles that are in the lab-grown meat or whatever else is in there. I had no idea that I needed them, but I do. Thank goodness the lab-grown meat was launched and being worked on before the alpha-gal tick started making everybody sick and allergic to meat. And I'll just be real here. Like if the deep state or the I don't know whatever you want to call them, like if they wanted to ruin my life, me having a meat allergy would be one of the worst things. I would become a scientist to figure out how to cure myself. I would literally just. I mean, I don't know about you, I don't really hunt for sport, okay? One of the main reasons I hunt deer, the main reason, is for food. They're delicious, okay? They're delicious. And I got questions about the chronic wasting disease and what that's all about, too. Aside from a giant cash grab, I think that, it makes available a giant cash grab from government agencies for your local game and fish commissions. Did I say cartel? I'm sorry. Should have said that. But the was starving. We needed the meat. Anyway, yeah. So we shouldn't be afraid to poach the sheriff's deer. I'm just joking. I don't agree. I'm not saying go out and poach. All I'm saying is the whole prion thing with the chronic wasting disease. I don't know. That has real similar tick, Lyme disease, tick, alpha-gal, tick. It just feels the same to me, and I could be totally wrong on that. But it's just a coincidence, right? Just a coincidence that everybody's getting a meat allergy when you've got Bill Gates and others that are like, oh, we're going to make lab-grown meat. We're going to make 3D printed meat. No thanks. I think I'll pass on that. What about you guys? Let's see. We've got R5 Trucker saying Bill Gates was in court in the Netherlands. Haven't heard anything lately. I'll have to look into that. The Tick was a funny cartoon. Bad mood. The Tick. Yes, I remember The Tick. That was a cartoon. I remember that. I don't know, maybe the humor, I was too young and the humor just kind of went over my head. Yeah, exactly. No lab meat. We don't want any of this nonsense, but we also don't want to be made allergic. You talk about Big Pharma driving you, or your toxicity, your food toxicity driving you to the arms of Big Pharma, also into big food, right? We have the cure. You can still eat meat, but it's just lab grown because you can't eat the real thing. What in the world? What kind of manufactured virus is this? I mean, that's just a mad scientist, James Bond level. We're going to make the whole world allergic to meat. It's crazy. It sounds like, we're going to blot out the sun, which, again, is also like what the World Economic Forum wants to do. I saw people saying that in the comments, blotting out the sun. Literally, World Economic Forum has mentioned something about that. Maybe we'll have time for that. I found this clip of John Kerry. I'm going to play it now. I think it's relevant. I'm going to play it now. I found this clip of John Kerry. It goes well. I was supposed to play it at the end of the last segment. But, it was Leslie Stahl's last question. So when Leslie Stahl is like, what do we do with all of these, these conspiracy theorists? Is this the new norm? Is this the new norm? And again, this coming from the dinosaur mainstream media, CBS 60 Minutes. Leslie Stahl, who, she's not young, okay? She's not young. But here's John Kerry at the World Economic Forum. It's actually a perfect segue. Talking about how the First Amendment really limits how we can get control of the narrative again.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact, the kind of been eviscerated to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, the referees were being paid by the CIA, and now there's less referees. There's still plenty of referees being paid by the CIA, but there's less of them now because, one of the big criticisms that Rob and I got when we started the show, we posted our stuff on TikTok or Instagram, and you get some left is like, there should be a license to own podcasting equipment. They don't like it.
And people go and that people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So,
again, he's right. This is their barrier. This is their problem. And the one section of the population out of the entire world that believes in the First Amendment is the middle class. Not the upper class, obviously. Lower class, I don't really care. They just want to live. Any means necessary. Giving up their freedoms, they'll do it. Middle class, we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in privacy. We believe in that. It's how we want to live. It's getting out of hand. The gatekeepers, the referees, as he calls them. Referees can be bought. Referees can be bought. Now let's get into this because this is actually a perfect segue. Oh, by the way, it was Aaron McIntyre. I want to give credit here. It was Aaron McIntyre that made me the title of this show was from his connection. A lot of people don't want to give credit to other people. I don't care. He's the one that connected the dots for me. SPLC funding, the KKK story drops. A week later, 60 Minutes just happens to run hey, that white guy helping you while your house was destroyed is probably a fascist segment, shameless and transparent. I just wanted to be clear there. But this is a perfect example because not only do we have this alpha gal syndrome where you become allergic to meat because of these ticks. If you haven't been bitten yet, if you haven't been bitten by the radioactive tick yet, you can barely afford, if you want to go eat meat, you can barely afford it these days. Because there's antitrust laws that are just being ignored. There's politicians that are basically there, they're compromised and they've allowed this situation to get to where it is. They specifically target your agricultural congressmen and senators. The meat packing plants do. It's not just about cattle farmers or even row crop farmers. I mean, you realize 70% of farmers right now are not able to really utilize every bit of the land that they would like to grow our food. So Secretary Brooke Rollins went out today, and she said this. Let's take a listen.
However, and this is the second part of what I want to talk about today, the consolidation in U.S. meatpacking has led to just 4 meat packers: JBS, a Brazilian-owned company, Cargill, Tyson Foods, and National Beef, another Brazilian company. Those 4 companies monopolize about 85% of the U.S. processing market today. But it hasn't always been that way. The rate of this 4-firm control has accelerated since the 1970s. According to USDA data, concentration for cattle slaughter of these 4 was only 25% in 1977 and jumped to 71% by 1992. As mentioned today, it is an astounding 85%. Notably, these four firms now own together more than 70 subsidiary companies today. They don't own them together, but in total, there are 70 subsidiary companies that are owned by these four. This has led to a frightening landscape for cattle ranchers. Industry consolidation reduces options for our ranchers looking to sell their cattle. It weakens their negotiating power, and it risks reliance upon a single buyer. Today, the concentration of larger plants opens the door to tighter coordination by the Big Four with producers, and perhaps the exertion of control over them as well, given they have limited options to sell their cattle.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, no, whatever. No, it is. It's a captured industry, and they've taken your cattle farmers, and they've got them. They're holding them hostage as well. I'll never forget. There's a state senator here in Arkansas who passed away recently. His name is State Senator Gary Stubblefield. There was a contentious special election to replace him. And I'll never forget. I mean, I used to work with him on when I was in radio on trying to get good pieces of legislation. He was a great man, great conservative. Did some great stuff for Christian values in our state. But I'll never forget it. He was the first person to, put me on to just how ridiculous this was, where I started looking into the meatpacking idea, because he made a post, it was years ago, about the price of beef at the grocery store, and him having personal knowledge as to what, a head of cattle's going for. And you're like, how do you get meat so expensive when the price of the cows is not even anywhere near what the market price is when you're, at the grocery store? We're being ripped off. The American people are being ripped off. We are captured in so many industries, and it's the people. The people at the top are just honestly just plain greedy, and the politicians are bought off to make sure it never changes. This is the populism that I can get on board with, that I am on board with. She also said this about the American cattle farmer.
Let's begin with the herd size. As of January 1st of this year, we have about 86.2 million head of cattle and calves in America. That is the lowest since the 1950s, and this year we're looking to be slightly down again. In the past decade alone, we've lost over 17% of our cattle ranchers. More than 100,000 ranches across this country are no more. The low herd size inherited by the Trump administration can be attributed to a variety of factors. The biggest one, at least from our perspective, is the radical left's ongoing assault against ranching as a way of life. For years, they used climate alarmism to wage a war on cattle in America. And when you pair that with droughts, wildfire, overregulation from previous administrations, and volatile markets, this is how we have ended up here today.
Brisket prices are too high. As I will keep saying, we could lead a real populist revolt. I think, well, if they ever do, if it's ever such a hot topic issue, I volunteer. I will lead the populist revolt, and the number one issue is just brisket. We're only going to focus on that particular muscle. It's actually two muscles on the cow, and we'll have a debate on whether the point or the flat is better. The point is obviously better. But anyway, I'll lead that populist revolt all day long. And then there's the topic of ghost cattle. Yeah, ghost cattle. You guys know what ghost cattle are? I'm looking into this story right now. It's a huge one. And there's a guy out of Kentucky by the name of John Griggs, private investigator, who he's been on a couple of podcasts already. And he has uncovered an immense amount of fraud in the multiple billions of dollars. And it's just crazy. I was telling somebody about it the other day, and they're like, what is going on with this country? Whether it's the Somali fraud, billions of dollars. The H-1B Indian fraud, billions of dollars. The Medi-Cal fraud. Our whole country, we wouldn't have... The fraud is out of control. I was listening to this story about ghost cattle, which is essentially, the idea is, and I have a very basic understanding so far. I'm going to get better at it. We're hopefully going to have Mr. Griggs on this program soon to talk about this, maybe even this week. I don't know yet. I'm waiting to hear back. But essentially, you have one cow, that gets bought and sold so many times, anywhere between 10 to 20 times or something like that. And it's just one cow, but it registers as being multiple cows when it's only one. And it is from what I can tell, a really interesting way to launder money. And there's banks involved, and it's a fascinating story. And so you want to talk about our why are our meat prices so high? Well, this probably contributes to it in some respects as well. In a big way as well. So hats off to the Trump administration and Brooke Rollins for being willing to call out the meat packing monopoly. Now we just need something to be done about it. Is this the same clip? Hang on one second.
Company, Cargill, Tyson Foods, and National Beef, another Brazilian percent. Notably, these four firms now, and it risks reliance upon a single buyer. Today, the concentration of larger plants opens the door to tighter coordination by the Big Four with producers, and perhaps the exertion of control over them as well, given they have limited options to sell their cattle. As ranchers face fewer options for selling their animals, the Big Four grow stronger and stronger. These companies now have an unprecedented ability to wield market power and influence prices paid for cattle, definitely more so than if we had greater competition. On top of that, half of these meatpacking giants, including the largest meat packer in the world, are either foreign owned or have significant foreign ownership and control.
And, then when you think about how captured our Congress is, if you've got our meat packing facilities, our meat packing companies that are owned by foreigners, well, now we have our Congress through the lobby taking money from foreigners to make sure that, well, the end result is that you are going to pay a higher price than you have to at the grocery store for some steak. And then at the same time, the left in this country that thinks that cow flatulence is creating climate change, they want you to eat less meat. And then at the same time, we have a new tick-borne illness that's causing people to become allergic to red meat. Now, 10 years ago, 15 years, this is to Leslie Stahl's point. Well, these people are becoming more dissatisfied with the government, when these groups get here. It's like people are already dissatisfied with the government. And 10, 15 years ago, you could lay those data points out, and you would have a significant portion of people that would say, it's just a coincidence. The number of Americans that look at those data points, beef is so high, the meatpacking plants are captured, and the left wants us to eat less meat for climate change. There's now Bill Gates' lab-grown meat that he's invested in, and there's now a tick that has a virus that makes people allergic to red meat. Now people look at those data points and they assume that there is a conspiracy and that they don't want us to eat meat. I don't know. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I know that ketogenic diets, for example, can be very healthy, very beneficial for certain times. You're basically hijacking your body. You're giving your body actually a hormone therapy, a natural hormones that come from maybe it. It does make people very healthy in a lot of ways. Blood work comes back better. This is not medical advice. There's just different studies out there that show it. And so maybe that a meat only diet or a low carb diet, high in protein, high in fats. Maybe somehow that allows you to kind of rise above the rest of the toxins in the environment. I don't know. I've tried to rack my brain as to exactly why, but we could always take it back to, hey, we want to shrink the middle class. We want soft communism, microwave communism, then full communism, and then the neo-feudalism is here, and we own nothing, and we're happy about it, and we're plugged into virtual reality video games like the World Economic Forum says, where, we don't know what to do with them. They don't have jobs anymore. The robots and AI have taken over all the jobs. What do we do with the rest of the people? We don't need the workers anymore. And by the way, this is coming from a population of elites that are obsessed with keeping the population. They think, at least, I actually think they know this is a lie, that overpopulation is a really big problem for the world, and the reality is that we don't have enough people. That this is a very big realm, planet Earth is, and these guys are just you know what? The late Andrew Breitbart said it. I heard it in person at a conference in Minneapolis years and years ago. The left are totalitarian freaks, he called them. Totalitarian freaks. And I would agree with that. I had this clip of Todd Blanche because he also, I want to make sure that we get this. Hang on a second, because I don't have it. Because he had something on this as well about this cattle. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was at that press conference with Brooke Rollins, and I had it up, but I don't see it. But I want to make sure that we get to it. Let's see what he said here. Yeah, 6 hours ago. Todd Blanche, historic antitrust settlement coming on chicken, pork, and turkey prices. So she was talking about beef, but that's why he had a statement earlier today about what's going on with our other meats, the other white meats.
As you all know, last November the president tasked the department to investigate the costs and prices of beef. As a result, we prioritized investigating potential antitrust violations in U.S. cattle and beef markets. In the beef industry, the big four processors control over 85% of the beef processing market. Two of the big four are primarily foreign-owned. Multiple plant closures across the country, the current market structure, and high concentration in the industry indicate anti-competitive activity. Since the president's executive order, the department has been actively investigating with a review of over 3 million documents. Hundreds of industry participants, including ranchers, cattlemen, producers, and processors, have been contacted and many interviewed as part of this ongoing investigation. More broadly, the department has also executed on the president's executive order to stop anti-competitive behavior in the broader food supply market. Later this week, we will be announcing an historic settlement that will directly affect the prices of proteins like chicken, pork, and turkey.
I didn't hear beef.
This business model allows competitors to exchange competitively sensitive information on every aspect of the protein industry and has raised the prices on chicken, raised the prices on pork, and raised the prices on turkey.
Well, he started talking about the cattle at the beginning. This doesn't really, I'm mainly concerned with brisket, as you guys know full well. But this is a positive development. And look, here's the deal with Todd Blanche. Again, I still don't fully trust this guy. I don't, man. I'm being real, I don't. But what we've gotten in the last 3 weeks has been really good. We've got James Comey, 8647. That's going to be interesting to see. You've got, you got the news today. You've got other developments that actually escape me right now. The SPLC. That's the huge one. Yeah. I still don't fully trust the guy, but I will say this. I'm going to take this opportunity to say what I've said every time this guy has an announcement. I am so thankful that it's not Pam Bondi behind that podium. I am so thankful that Pam Bondi is not there being like Tyson and Cargill and that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Like, I'm just so glad that it's not her, because every time she opened her mouth, the only thing that left was credibility. Credibility just went out the window because of her delivery, because of everything. I don't know. I mean, she was certainly very comfortable on Fox News, but even on Fox News, she wasn't. I mean, it was just cringe. Every time she opened her mouth, it was cringe. And so that's my obligatory. I'm just glad it's not Pam Bondi standing behind that podium. We got some redistricting news we're going to get into, kind of piggybacking off of the Supreme Court decision that essentially, I don't know what is going on in the office above me, but somebody's having some sort of a race with office chairs. Can you guys hear that? It probably just sounds like thunder to you. Anyway, so the redistricting update for 2026, it's looking like we got Texas going to increase 5, Florida 4. Ron DeSantis signed the new map into law today. Ohio +1, North Carolina +1, California comes in with +5. We've got Missouri is on appeal. That'll be a +1. Utah and Virginia, that's going to be +5 between the two of them. And then we've got special sessions that are going to be called in Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee. Tennessee's going to get the one. They're going to get rid of Memphis, this seat that centers around Memphis. And then you got Alabama that's going to get 1 to 2. It could be 2. For sure going to be 1. It just kind of depends on how they draw the lines. There could be, the way they draw the lines, there still could be a chance for a Democrat to win. Louisiana the same way. The way they draw the lines, with New Orleans, still could be a blue district in Louisiana, but for sure they're going to get 1 out of it, but maybe 2. So that's the update right there. Total appeal maps passes, you're looking at R +5 to 7. Appeal maps get struck down, you're looking at R +9 to 11. New seats. So as last week we were talking about, why does President Trump not seem concerned about the midterms? Not as much as you would think, especially with unpopular, there's the Iran war, obviously, is a big one, right? Unpopular, in my opinion. Certainly with me. I'm not the emperor, but, wasn't not a fan of that. Here is, let's see, Spicer went on Bannon. So Georgia, on Friday we told you that Alabama had come around. They're going to do a special session, try to get this done. We also told you on Friday that South Carolina was going to try to do it, but it looks like there's some sort of pesky virtue signaling state senator who doesn't want to do it. So there's rhino Republicans in South Carolina literally protecting Democrat seats, racially gerrymandered seats in South Carolina, which is, it just shows you that they are totally clueless as to what time it is. It shows you that they're totally clueless as to just how, I've really apologized. Whatever is going on above me right now. I know this is live, but my goodness, I don't know what is going on up there, but it's like really, really distracting. They don't care about the people. They're literally like, we need the Republicans to understand the threat that a Democrat takeover of Congress and what it would actually mean to their own voters. And obviously, there are people that don't understand that threat or are actively working for the other side and agree with what the Democrats would do to their own voters, to the Republican voters, if they were put in positions of power. So Georgia apparently is out. Brian Kemp, no shocker there. Brian Kemp has said, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to we're not going to call a special session and redistrict. This, of course, is the guy who refused to do anything about the stolen election in Georgia in 2020. Tennessee again, Memphis, we're going to flip that. Mississippi, now this was interesting because I know President Trump was saying, hey, look, we want Mississippi to try to, eliminate their one Democrat district. But Grace Chong, who keeps track of what Steve Bannon reports, says that Mississippi's primaries are already over, and I didn't know that on Friday. I'm assuming that that's true. Alabama pushing a 48-hour timeline, 6-1 now, 7-0 next cycle. Louisiana mandated redraw, likely +1. Partisan allowed, race-based not, decision 6-1, safe, 7-0 risk. So, you've got numbers that say 7 to 9 to 10. You got to figure by 2028, all of this is going to be worked out in a better fashion to where we're no longer going to have to run the southern states with one hand tied behind our back. It's a miracle we've done as good as we have, considering these race-based Democrat court-enforced districts. It really is. Okay, yeah, there was the Todd Blanche clip. I had it out of order. Well, we ended up finding it, so it's okay. Now we have Ron Johnson. Let's talk about the filibuster. This kind of goes hand in glove with, Republicans that don't really understand what their own voters are going to face under Democrat rule, where nobody has been held accountable, and when we know what they want to do, right? So Ron Johnson goes on Fox Business earlier today and says this.
Like to have the ability to block awful Democrat legislation from the minority. The problem is when the Democrats have the chance, they will end the filibuster. They want to turn America into a one-party nation. They'll pack the Supreme Court. They'll turn D.C., Puerto Rico into states. They will nationalize our elections, automatic registration, mail-in balloting. So we need to stop them. And the only way we can stop them is end the filibuster now, pass election integrity reforms so that only American citizens can vote and you have basic controls over the election. So again, I'm just being practical. They're going to do it. We ought to do it before that for the benefit of the American people, to secure our borders, to secure our elections, not turn America into a one-party nation is what the Democrats would do with it.
So, he's exactly right. That's exactly what's going to happen. We all know this. Rob sat here the other day and said it. Nobody really believes. No one, the Republicans in power, John Thune, these other guys, they trust that Chuck Schumer is somehow not going to end the filibuster on day one. Of course they are, because these people they're playing to win, and we are not playing to win. We are not playing to win, and it really goes to show you the amount of contempt that they have for their own voters. They are willing to do nothing and basically subject the rest of the country, their own voters, to the anti-Christian policies that they all have planned. And honestly, if you're a Trump administration official as well, if you know about the reports about the communists that are still in the FBI and DOJ that are keeping tabs, keeping records of everything, waiting for the Dems to get back in power, so they're going to go after all of them. You would think they would be putting pressure on Congress to actually winnow the Democratic Party and make current iterations of the Democrat Party just functionally illegal. But they're not doing that. Now, here was an interesting clip that happened the other day over the weekend where John Thune allegedly is saying he's going to bring the Save America Act to the floor without the 60-vote zombie filibuster, which, if that's the case, would be really good. We get a lot of these Republicans on the record. Here is Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna talking about this. Again, this was posted last night.
Rich and Luna and myself are not willing to allow that.
So based on your discussion, it sounds like you're moving towards.
Yes, based on our discussion right now, we're moving towards it. Also, we got assurances on the standing filibuster, which is incredibly important. I don't know if you guys remember when I was talking about inherent contempt. A lot of people didn't know what that is. The standing filibuster is an old school parliamentary procedure, but it's a way to break through what we consider traditional norms to get voter ID passed. I think that it's brilliant that they came up with it, but exactly that's why we kind of have these discussions, and we're very happy about the outcome. So there should be a standing filibuster announced soon, and I would actually reach out to Senator Thun's office to ask him about that because they have different rules in the Senate.
So that'll get you to yes tomorrow on the rule.
Yeah, as of right now, we feel very comfortable where we're at based on what we are discussing.
Can I get your reaction to the Clintons agreeing to testify before the Oversight Committee?
So the SAVE Act is obviously integral, especially with the Supreme Court decision. I mean, you talk about a really big win here with the Supreme Court decision ending the race-based gerrymandering districts in the South and flyover country, but specifically on the South. And then you get voter ID. It could be a really big game changer. Now, with the caveat that because of electronic voting machines, you can still steal an election after you show somebody your ID and vote. And we have that caveat because we're good friends at this point. Friend of the show, Dr. Andrew Paquette, the purveyor of zarkfiles.substack.com. He was on the show on Friday. I don't know if you guys saw it, but that clip actually went, for my small account on X, went semi-viral because he gave it a retweet. His account is actually going pretty viral right now for him, getting 500,000 views and stuff for his account, and he's posting old data that he's put out there that he's done research on. But even blue states like New York are apparently cheating. I mean, just look at this tweet right here. The 254,713 missing votes are for 2020, but compare the 2021 database to the 2023 database for the same elections. 2016 missing votes grew from 2,310 to 2,876. In 2018, missing votes changed from 39,000 to 37,000. 2020 missing votes grew from 220,000 to 228,000. And this was the response. So this basically has to do with clones. He describes it like if you're walking in a grocery store and you walk down an aisle and you see a distinct couple wearing distinct clothes in a grocery store on a grocery store aisle. And then you go to the next aisle and you see the exact same couple. And then you go to the next aisle and you see the exact same couple, multiples in the same aisle. That's what he's finding in the voter rolls in this country. There are clones. He says they're made before the elections. He says the algorithms don't belong in the voter rolls any more than an armadillo belongs in your underwear. Nail on the head time. It doesn't matter why or how. The rolls and other election infrastructure are unfit for purpose because they fail to meet even the most rudimentary standard of utility. And so he's got these papers that he publishes in peer-reviewed journals. He says, for the record, my working hypothesis regarding election fraud. Number one, almost all election workers are completely innocent of involvement. Number two, the people whose identities were cloned have no idea it happened. They are victims of identity theft. Number three, electronic election fraud is in every state, but has penetrated some much more deeply than others. Number four, voter roll algorithms can be used to covertly track records. This is an extremely serious vulnerability that many people don't seem to understand. I consider it worse than forging signatures on ballots. Number five, he says, multiple methods are simultaneously being used in different places. Some cannot be used together. They would cancel each other out. Others can be. Number six, the methods are changing every year, becoming more difficult to identify. For instance, Bexar County, Texas, and Toole County, Utah. The Electoral College. Number seven, the Electoral College is the only thing that has protected us from a total collapse of government. It must be protected at all costs. Number eight, the lowest step of any criminal scheme is to turn off the alarms. That is what happened when multiple jurisdictions turned off data validation on their election infrastructure. Literally none of the things I have found could exist otherwise. Number nine, some combination of foreign influence, bribes, plus threats, and domestic compliance was necessary to achieve the results we see across the nation. Number 10, the modern era of electronic election fraud was made possible by the Help America Vote Act, HAVA. Really good stuff, and you see this AI art of an alien xenomorph about to, attack Uncle Sam. That's pretty good. Then he goes on and said, I have to admit I forgot something important, but I did. Number 11, New York is not a blue state. It is either purple or red. The stuff he's found in New York, it's crazy to me to think that you think New York is a lost cause. No, he is saying that New York is a purple or even a red state based on the fraud he's found in New York. I mean, really game-changing stuff that just showing an ID is not going to fix. Now, any of the mail-in ballots, that'll help too with the SAVE Act, but we have to look at what's going on with the electronic voting fraud. And people don't want to admit that it exists, but it does. And he's basically got them dead to rights, folks. Andrew Paquette has them dead to rights. And every time we have him on the program, I know it can be difficult to kind of parse what he's saying because it is so technical. But it's that way by design. But I've talked to him off the air, and one of the fixes with, I mean, if you wanted to continue with electronic voting machines, which I don't think we should, but do you realize, and I don't know the exact terminology, so I'm going to butcher this, but many of these electronic voting machines are operating well outside of just standard cybersecurity laws and practices. Like what goes on when you go to vote, talking to Andrew, what goes on when we go to vote, the protocols, just the convention, the whole thing would never be allowed to stand in a private company. A private company, if they were running something similar, would never be okay with all of the vulnerabilities. We're not actually, like, there are laws on the books that you could look to say, okay, these are the standards that you have to meet for cybersecurity. According to him, we're not anywhere close to meeting those things with these third-party proprietary source codes, private companies running public elections. So anyway, we're going to continue watching that. So I support the SAVE Act. I think it's great. It needs to happen, but it's not addressing the elephant in the room, which is the electronic voting machine fraud. And so his research is integral to solving this problem, in my opinion. Integral, absolutely integral. All right, what else do we have? Let's see here. Should we do a Graham watch? Should we do a Graham watch? Oh my goodness! Am I even prepped for it? Let's see. All right. It's time. We're gonna do it. Now it is time for Graham watch, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't done one in a week, and so here goes. Let's do it.
Senator Lindsey Graham, Love's New Wars. This segment is called Graham Watch, and it's dedicated to him. We see you, Lady G. You, Lady G. Yeah, Lady G.
All right, so for this edition of Graham Watch, we're going to go to this clip from, first of all, his opponent, Mark Lynch, responding to... So Lindsey Graham's running ads now, I guess.
I'm Lindsey Graham, and I approve this message.
I'm Lindsey Graham, and I approve this message.
What it feels like to lose everything at a young age.
So Lindsey Graham is out there trying to pull at your emotional heartstrings now, talking about how he lost his parents too soon. And Mark Lynch isn't having any of it. Maybe we should call this a Mark Lynch segment. I'm not even going to play the ad because it's just too ridiculous. He's trying to tug at emotional heartstrings. Vote for me and feel sorry for me because I had a tough childhood. But Mark Lynch, I think, responds to this perfectly. South Carolina's taxes are climbing, services are dwindling, and gas, food, and everything else, beef, brisket, is more expensive thanks to you sending billions to Ukraine and the Middle East. I'm not sure where your heart is, but it definitely isn't with South Carolina. So look for this more. Lindsey Graham if he's going to have a shot at this, he's got to humanize himself. That's what he's trying to do here. Because right now, I mean, the guy, he just seems like a callous politician that only cares about South Carolina every 5.5 years. You know what I mean? Every 5.5 years, every 5 to 5.5 years, you're in South Carolina. You'll hear from Lady Lindsey. He'll come down. I need to ask your vote. You wonder if that House of Cards show was based off of Lindsey Graham. That Kevin Spacey guy was Kevin Spacey was the congressman from South Carolina. So yeah, there's that. And then we've got this. Mark Lynch, I am honored to earn the endorsement of Gun Owners of America and receive an A rating. The Second Amendment is clear. It shall not be infringed. So Gun Owners of America now endorsing Mark Lynch. It's a big deal. And Mark Lynch just continues to gain steam from what I can tell in the race. And it's going to be a doozy. June the 9th, we're about a month away from the primary between Lady Lindsey Graham and businessman Mark Lynch. Lindsey's now starting to attack Mark Lynch, so that lets you know that he is nervous about this. And you talk about election fraud, the type of election fraud that was uncovered in Bexar County, Texas by Andrew Paquette. We got to be watching South Carolina to see exactly the numbers and what could potentially go wrong there as well, because if you follow Paquette's research about Bexar County, Texas, and really the state of Texas as a whole, well, he conservatively says that Ken Paxton. He conservatively says that that the real winner of the Republican primary in Texas between Cornyn and Paxton is unknowable. But I think I'm convinced that I think Ken Paxton would have won, maybe even outright, but certainly would have come out on top of John Cornyn. But then that didn't happen. Cornyn barely eked him out, and I think it's because you had fraud like in Bexar County, Texas, all over the state. So, yeah, that concludes this edition of Graham Watch.
Senator Lindsey Graham loves new wars. This segment is called Graham Watch, and it's dedicated to him. We see you, Lady G.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. Going to reset. Don't go anywhere, folks. This is the Paul Harrell Program. Just know we can't do the program without you. And I want you to consider red light therapy, red light panels from redvivehealth.org/Paul. It'd be a great way for you to not only beat the medical industrial complex and then trying to drive you into the arms of Big Pharma, but it is also a great way to support the show. And so you can call 844-REDVIVE or go to redvivehealth.org/Paul or use my promo code Paul. Save 35% off of these red light panels, folks. It's incredible, and you need to go do your own research. Like, go to the website and look at their scientific studies about why their panels are better than competitors. Red light, near-infrared light. Red light's great for the collagen. Near-infrared light, great to penetrate into your deep tissues, bones, muscles, organs, stimulating the mitochondria of the cells. Called biophotomodulation. Look it up. It is real. The science is real. I'm told orthopedic surgeons are not huge fans of this technology because it keeps people from going under the knife. Also, regrowing hair, sleep schedule, just little aches and pains, inflammation in general. I want you to go try it. redvivehealth.org/Paul. We're going to take a break. Going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
For centuries, light has been used to heal. Awaken the body with Redvive.
The other things that we're seeing, more and more use for is even vascular issues. So one of the mechanisms that red light, near-infrared light, or Redvive works is stimulation of the mitochondria and stimulation of nitric oxide production. So when nitric oxide is released in cells, it vasodilates cells. It reduces inflammation. It moves blood. It brings blood flow to areas. So folks that have issues with ulcers or burns or wounds, it can help stimulate increased blood supply, and you need blood to heal. So that can open up different avenues for peripheral artery disease, for neuropathic pain syndromes. And so that's one of the other areas for nerve injury or nerve pain. that we can leverage this type of medicine.
My name is John, and this is my beautiful wife, Lori, and this is our Star Wars Ewok. His name is Scout, and we have Scout for about 11 years now, and we started noticing about 3 years ago, he started slowing down. He was unable to jump on the bed. He was kind of a little bit grumpier, and when my daughters, Macy and Mariah, would take him on walks, he would walk for about 30 yards, and then he'd lay down, and they'd carry him the rest of the way. So I heard about Pet Club 24/7 and about the products from a gentleman that I really trust and share a friendship with. And he mentioned to me that they have products that are going to help him with his arthritis, help him build his immune system. And I said, okay, no problem. Let's try them out. And I kid you guys not, within about 2 to 3 days, we started noticing a little difference. And then we took Scout on a walk probably about a week after we started using the products, the mush puppies, and he would walk the entire way. He would walk at least a mile, and it's just been completely amazing. He's a new dog. He's 11 years old, which is around 80 years in dog years, and he's just happy. He's more energetic. He's not the grumpy old man he used to be, and we're just so thankful. And it was perfect timing because we lost our boxer Yankee about a year and a half ago, and it was really hard on us. So I'm so thankful for Pet Club 24/7 for the products that they offer. Imagine if you could have your best friend around one more day or one more week or even one more year. I'm so blessed and thankful that we were able to find this company and find these products for Scout. So thank you guys. Give it a shot. We appreciate you. God bless everyone.
Behind every precious life, there was a choice. Behind every family moment, behind every special memory, there was a choice. A life of joy. A life that is beautifully and wonderfully made. At 7 Weeks Coffee, we are funding the pro-life movement, one cup at a time. Will you let your coffee serve a greater purpose?
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks, welcome to the show. Welcome back. So glad that you're with us here on LFA TV, the YouTube page, Paul Harrell Program, Facebook, X. Just kind of perusing some of the headlines during the break. Senator Rand Paul just posted this tweet about 2 hours ago. He says this about Anthony Fauci. He says the DOJ has 1 week left to charge Anthony Fauci for the worst cover-up in modern medical history. He lied to Congress about funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan. Millions died, trillions were spent, and Fauci walked away with book deals and fawning media coverage instead of in handcuffs. I re-upped my criminal referral to the DOJ because the evidence is overwhelming and justice has been delayed long enough. Retweet if you're ready to see Fauci behind bars. I think we all are, especially since his lieutenant has now been arrested and is likely going to go to jail because of blatantly, flagrantly violating FOIA laws, if you will. Tom Tillis has just come out in support over the weekend of former FBI director, Chief Spook James Comey.
The mobster says to one of his wonderful associates, 86 him, that means kill him.
Do you think posting 8647 is a crime?
No, again, if this prosecution, which is coming from the Eastern District of North Carolina, if this whole case is based on a picture in the sand of a North Carolina beach, it again makes no sense to me. Number one, I used to work in the restaurant industry, and I think 86 actually has its roots as a cook.
That's my understanding too.
It has its roots in 86ing the menu or 86ing the product. I can't find any evidence except some that's come up after the president made the comment about the movies. I know the penal code in North Carolina, 187, means murder, but I can't find any evidence where 86 is used as a call for violence. And again, if
so, I mean, I know he's a politician and I get it, but come on. How can you argue that it doesn't? This is the thing. You can argue that, hey, this is First Amendment, you could argue all that, but to argue that it doesn't mean that you're wanting to commit violence against the president it's gaslighting, yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's just not even, it's not even good gaslighting. It's not even genuine, like, it's just totally mocking you. This is ridiculous. And yeah, he's on his way out. He's a lame duck senator, Tom Tillis. He's no fan of Trump. But to come out and back Comey, and again, none of these intel oligarchs here are going to tell you the truth. That's what James Comey is, and they're not going to. I haven't heard anybody on mainstream media. Now, I don't watch Fox, and so maybe somebody has said it there, but I don't know anybody that has actually said, "Look, this is the former." Arguably the head spy of the entire nation who has people loyal to him. This is like it's the equivalent of a military general potentially, that's out of the administration trying to do a coup, trying to get military troops to be loyal to me because I was in the military, now I'm ousted. The intelligence agencies are no different. They are very much like a military. They decide who lives and who dies. They decide who spy on. They decide who frame. They decide who to frame. They carry guns. They are in Joe Biden's case, they were his personal police force arresting grandmas for protesting outside of abortion clinics. So nobody is saying that he is held to a higher standard because in it clearly is a threat on his life, whether he created the shells or he found it the way he said. I suspect the government has evidence that he created it. He couldn't help it. He got a little artistic, got in touch with his seashell side, and he just decided to sell. He also wanted to sell his book too. There's the financial motivation here. So, but yeah, if you're basically the general of a mass force that you've been ousted from the government, but you still have people loyal inside, which James Comey clearly does. He's got senators stumping for him. You can't wink and a nod and tell people to kill your political enemies as the former head spook of the country. And I know it's an arguable point. People are going to say, well, it's the FBI, it's not the CIA or the NSA, but all of that is just it's all an incestual relationship at this point. There's no boundaries. There's no firm black and white lines between these organizations. And to suggest otherwise is, again, just more gaslighting. So no surprise there from Tom Tillis. This was the slide I pulled earlier that I referenced. And again, I don't know if this is an actual this is true. I do not know if this is true. I do know I was in my backyard the other day, and I have some woods in the back of my house. Not thick woods, but I do have some woods back there, and the ticks are out of control this year. Literally just go back and just look down on the ground and you see them crawling around. Anyway, normally, you get them because you brush up against a leaf or something, like the branch of a tree. But people are putting these data points together that there's now a tick-borne illness that makes you allergic to meat, as Bill Gates is funding research into genetically engineered cattle. And you got these lab grown meats, but so this is just a video that's going around on TikTok.
I'm out here mushroom hunting, and I found, there it is right there, the tick box. I'm not going to touch it because there's ticks all over that thing. I know there is. Look at them crawling out of it. Millions of them. You can see the tick.
Well, so those first of all look like ants. So, but there's other reports as well of these of ticks. This is just engagement farming, I suspect. But you have I've seen other reports as well of people claiming that there are ticks being dispersed. But whether that's true or not, if the fact of the matter is there's a tick-borne illness out there. Be very careful. I don't want you guys to no longer be able to eat meat. And just be very wary. And if you see a tick, do the protocols, get the tick off of you. I don't know how you do it. There's different ways to do it, but you want to make sure that you don't leave the head in. Yeah, all this is not happening by accident, in my opinion. And then you've got this. It's kind of wild that our ancestors, R.N. McIntyre writes, went to war over taxes on paint. But both the GOP and the Democrats are effortlessly pushing through legislation to ensure the government can kill your car anytime and anywhere. And, it's now going to happen. It's now in the 2027 legislation, and there's now patents for it. As we told you last week, has these patents where they want to scan your biometric data when you get into the car. It'll upload directly to a criminal database. And it's all moving towards this. It's just a society where you're not free. I was listening. I do listen to talk radio still. I don't really watch Fox News, but I am a captive audience on talk radio. As you're driving in your car, I still listen to terrestrial radio, and so I was listening to the two guys that took the place of Rush Limbaugh, Buck Sexton, Clay Travis. And I'm not saying that I just hate all of their takes or anything. I'm not, but it is just a huge downgrade. Can we take a moment and just kind of? And I know they're not. I know they don't claim to be able to replace Rush Limbaugh. I get it, but it really is just sad. The 11 o'clock Central rolls around and you don't hear do 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 do. It's sad. It's really really sad, but they were even talking today about, they're talking about Spirit Airlines going under and how driverless cars are here, and get a Tesla, and, had a caller, get a Tesla. It's amazing. Even though I don't like the Tesla, I hate Tesla, but my wife got one. And now you can just, you put the self-driving cars and all this stuff. And I'm like, I get the convenience of it, but is there nobody that's going to say, hey, this is Orwellian? This is all going to be turned against us? That they're building this dragon machine around us. They're just not turning it on. And when they want to turn it on, it'll be like COVID all over again. Sorry, there's a pandemic. Your Tesla doesn't work today. You can't go anywhere. You got to stay in your house. This is insane. It's so patently obvious what's going on here. And people are celebrating it. It's insane. Perfect segue. This is why I planned it. Sometimes I forget what I have next. Listen, this is Edward Snowden back in the day. There now are reports that they're considering giving him a pardon, Edward Snowden, which would be a fantastic move. It would make all the right people furious, especially neocons. Here he is.
What they call the social credit system. If any of these family photos, if any of your activities online, if your purchases, if your associations, if your friends are in any way different from what the government or the powers that be of the moment would like them to be, you're no longer able to purchase train tickets. You're no longer able to board an airplane. You may not be able to get a passport. You may not be eligible for a job. You might not be able to work for the government. All of these things are increasingly being created and programmed and decided by algorithms. And those algorithms are fueled by precisely the innocent data that our devices are creating all of the time, constantly, invisibly, quietly, right now. Our devices are casting all of these records that we do not see being created, that in aggregate seem very innocent. You were at Starbucks at this time. You went to the hospital afterwards. You spent a long time at the hospital. After you left the hospital, you made a phone call. You made a phone call to your mother. You talked to her until the middle of the night. The hospital was an oncology clinic. Even if you can't see the content of these communications, the activity records, what the government calls metadata, which they argue they do not need a warrant to collect, tells the whole story. And these activity records are being created and shared and collected and intercepted constantly by companies and governments. And ultimately it means as they sell these, as they trade these, as they make their businesses on the backs of these records, what they are selling is not information. What they are selling is us. They're selling our future. They're selling our past. They are selling our history, our identity, and ultimately they are stealing our power and making our stories work for them.
Making our stories work for them. Yeah, just sitting here thinking, like, you know, if you were right now, you know, if you were at the NSA or whatever, one of these places where, you know, they have this technology, you know, you know very well you could go and you could just ask right now. As you feed all this aggregate information into some AI, you could say, I want to know the exact number of Christians in America today based on regular church attendance. Done. I want to know, and then you could say, I want to know, how many of them go to churches that are more orthodox, you know, not evangelifish, but more fundamentalist. How many of them go to churches that are tied to denominations that are more, we really mean it? How many of them go to churches that never closed during COVID? How many of them go to churches that opened after the 2-week shutdown versus the 4-month shutdown? Okay, so who are those people? Okay. How many of those types of Christians do we have right now? They know the exact number. They know where you are. Turnkey. They know where you are. Now, this is where my mind goes. I don't see how any person with a mindset of self-preservation wouldn't go here. If you know the nature of man, which, by the way, many of those Christian churches do know the nature of man. Isn't that interesting? The nature of man to try to squash good things. People that believe that there's a power greater than the government, that there's a power greater than the AI. It's pretty crazy, right? But that's the nature of man, right? I heard a sermon yesterday on this very thing, which was pretty fascinating. When there was a lot to the text of it. There's a lot to the text. Acts chapter 5, and this is when the Sanhedrin brings Peter and the apostles before their group, right? You know, they're trying to figure out what to do with them, and it's so funny because it was said in the sermon, and I just thought it was so profound that why did the apostles get brought before the Sanhedrin? Well, yeah, they were preaching Christ crucified. They were preaching his resurrection. They were preaching that, but then they were also healing people, and the text says that, you know, people were even just wanting Peter's shadow to be cast over them. But, you know, basically you had the lame walking, you had the sick being healed, okay? And really good stuff, right? Like, we can, if you ever doubt the depravity of man apart from God, this is just like a textbook example. You know, because we like to think, well, no, I mean, that's a good thing, you know, and anybody would agree that somebody being healed is good, and we want more of that. No, depends on the context. In the context of the Sanhedrin, they literally did not want more people to be healed and walk and no longer be sick. They saw that as a bad thing. Now, I mean, on paper, we give human beings way too much credit. I mean, we want people to see that. We want people to see something that's genuinely good for others and say, oh, yeah, of course they would be for that. Of course, you know. We would love to cast those aspersions on maybe the left or the atheist left. But, well, of course they can agree that that's good, right? You know, they may not agree with that there is a God or that Jesus is the only way to heaven, but, you know, they would see like the positive results of a functioning society and an intact family and, you know, productive citizens. No. Because we literally have a biblical account of the apostles preaching and also healing people, physically making them better. They couldn't walk. They were very sick, and they were no longer sick, and now they could walk. And the Sanhedrin comes along and says, that's a bad thing, actually. People getting healthy is a bad thing, actually, and we're going to try to stop it because the whole thing was a threat to their power structure. And so what did they do? They put him in prison, and guess what? The angel says, I'm going to unlock the prison. And so they go right back to the temple, preaching and healing. They bring him before the Sanhedrin. And then this one guy, Gamaliel, is like, well, you don't want to oppose God. This could be a movement of God. And I'm paraphrasing. But it'll probably die out. If it's not a movement of God, it'll die out. If it is a movement of God, you don't want to oppose God, and it's gonna continue growing. And so they just beat him up, and then they sent him on their way. And it says the apostles left the Sanhedrin full of joy that they were counted worthy to suffer for the name of Christ. And so that's where going back to what Edward Snowden was talking about documenting everything. I mean, and I was just talking about it from a Christian standpoint. Like if somebody wants to, like, give me where are the true believers? Not just cultural Christians. Where are the true believers? Show them to me right now on a computer screen. They've got all of that data. Especially, if you take your cell phone to church, even if you don't take your cell phone to church, if you talk about church, they got it all. They're recording everything we say. And so the technology to enslave exists. It is turnkey. It is being built under us. It's already being built. And so we've got to do something about it. The intelligence oligarchy has to be brought to heel. I mean, it is a tool. You can say, well, it's a tool and it can be used. And that's the thing. It is a tool. It could be used for good. But if you've got people at the top running things like Anthony Fauci, then you most assuredly know it will be used for evil. Most assuredly, it'll be used for evil, 100%. It's just crazy. It just struck me yesterday in service. I was like, wow, yeah. I mean, I know total depravity is a thing, but to really look at it, they wanted a world where people remained crippled and sick. It's disgusting, but that's what we're capable of, apart from Christ. All right, that's let's see. That's about all the time. Oh man, we still did not get to this story. Man, this was great. Rob's not going to be. I got to save this story for when Eric is here, just so I have somebody to talk to about this. Where you have this Indian guy who files this lawsuit against this J.P. Morgan executive and basically claims that she made him her sex slave, and then everybody found out a picture of the guy, and everybody's like, okay, this guy made this whole story up. And now we're finding out that this guy lied and said that his dad was dead so he could get bereavement pay. Like, is this the Indian George Costanza? Am I looking at the Indian version of George Costanza here? I think I am. Matter of fact, if they were making Seinfeld in modern times, this would be a plot where George tries to frame his attractive boss. And he would say it that way, boss, I'm going to try to frame my boss and claim that she made me her butler. She made me her sex slave. Oh, folks, we have too much fun here. All right, we're going to hand it off to Secret America. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We can't do the show without you. I want to give a shout-out to our sponsors, Red Vive Health, New Horizon Real Estate, Gateway Sight and Sound, 7 Weeks Coffee, also Pet Club 24/7, and Shared Chiropractic. We will see you tomorrow. God bless.